What's up, gang? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. Man, I'm flying solo, and we're doing some more Stoicism Fridays. It's a new thing I'm doing. I've been studying Stoicism like lightly for, a couple years now. And I mentioned this last week's solo that I got introduced to Ryan Holiday. Just through he's connected with a lot of my friends. He's friends of friends, and I started paying attention to his work. I was reading a lot of books in 2022 and 2023, and so I kind of got addicted to his books. And it's been kind of a thing I've fallen in love with is Ryan and his work, and so I pay attention to his Instagram handle, Daily Stoic. I highly recommend checking out if you want to learn some stoicisms, and it's really just like how the greatest emperor of Rome and many of his teachers and compatriots of his time, how they thought about how to live a good life. And it's a philosophy that I got introduced to that I'm pretty into right now. But there's a post that Ryan and the Daily Stoic had out a few days ago, which was essentially like 7 things you should never do according to the Stoics. So I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to read some of these to you and really kind of give you my thoughts on them, because I've actually, what I found was I kind of landed in a lot of these places by myself, just through my own life learnings. I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden I read, even the first one I'm going to read a second from now, I literally have an entire episode about this. So we're gonna go through these and have a little fun here. But 7 things you should never do according to the Stoics. Number 1 is don't suffer imagined troubles. It'll either happen or it won't. Don't suffer before you need to. And I'm gonna say right now that I'm a D+ student at this, but I had someone tell me once, when you do that, you're really, you're suffering unnecessarily, because you can't control what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. And for all you know, nothing's going to happen. Seneca said this, by the way. You're sitting there worried about these things that aren't going to happen. And at the end of the day, you're just hurting yourself, right? And what I've learned to do is just kind of like get grounded when this happens, let go, because I can't control the situation, right? And at the end of the day, it's going to either be a great situation or it's going to be a tough situation, and you're just going to I'm just going to tough it out. I'm going to make it happen, and we talked a little bit about this last week on last week's show when we were talking about how the Stoics think about anxiety. But I'm going to jump to the next one, because I believe I talked about that quote a little bit last week. This next one I love. Don't be overheard complaining, not even to yourself, by Marcus Aurelius. And it's funny because I think some people it's like the misery loves company quote. They love to complain. They love to hear themselves complain. They want to complain and have, people to come and commiserate with them. But the funny thing about this is I'll catch myself a lot of the time complaining, which again, I'm like, okay, what do you want to do about it? Right? Bitching about it's not going to help. There's a great book called the Empowerment Dynamic by David Emerald. And, he has these 3 paradigms, one of which is the victim paradigm. And the language of complaint in Emerald's work is that of a victim. So when we're overheard complaining, number 1, the outside world views you as a victim. You're in the victim mindset, right? Like what are you doing to fix the situation? It's number 1. Number 2, to yourself, you're a victim. I think honestly, that's the worst of the two, is that you then identify as a victim. You're like, oh, woe is me, poor me, and look, life's not fair. Things happen. I'll tell you, even for myself right now, I've gone through a time in my life that's, dealing with unfairness has been part of what I've been working through. And I realized, I'm like, life's not fair. Like that, no one guarantees fairness. And so a lot of that's like my own perception. Maybe I'm wrong, you know? Usually it's a little bit of both. It's like your side, their side, and the truth. I love that. But Marcus Aurelius really got it, which if you're overheard complaining, you're viewed as a victim, which is a huge negative. It's a liability against you. And number two, if you yourself are complaining, you identify as a victim. And that is a mindset issue that you need to overcome, because you will never be able to maximize who you are as an individual, who you are as a human, or where you're trying to get in life if you are coming at it from the victim mindset, which is, I don't get what I deserve. I am, this person did this to me, that happened to me, that I shouldn't have had that happen to me. And really it's around getting out of that victim mindset, going from the language of complaint to the creator mindset that Emerald talks about in the empowerment dynamic. And really, like, what can I do to overcome that, or ignore the complaint and say, great, that happened, no big deal. I'm going to go and get ahead in this X, Y, and Z way. So I love that quote by Marcus Aurelius. Thought I'd entertain you with it for a moment. So let's go to number 3, which is, and I love this one. Don't compare yourself to others. Epictetus. And so we talked about this. This came from a quote from the book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. We interviewed his author, Eric Jorgensen. He's actually coming back on the show here. And I called it the 100% rule, which was me really ripping it off from my main man, Naval Ravikant. But it's like, don't compare yourself to others. Why? Because like, you're not them. And one of the things he talks about is only do it if you're willing to take 100% of their life. And I love that. I've told people that. I was like, I used to compare myself all the time to other people. And then I realized that would I do it if I had to take 100% of what they had? And I'll use an example. I said, okay, would I compare myself to Elon Musk? And this is an old episode where I talked about meeting Elon Musk and comparing myself to him and kind of beating myself up for not doing enough great things in my life or in the world. And the funny thing was, I then thought, once I learned this rule, I was like, would I trade my life for Elon Musk? And I was like, oh, hell no. Which maybe some listeners are listening to this and thinking, oh, I would. And I'm like, well, you need to go meet Elon Musk, and then you might feel differently. I just kind of watch him and his behavior, and I'm like, yeah, this is a guy that's like deeply flawed, genius and brilliant, but deeply flawed individual. And like, yeah, I wouldn't want to be him. I like being myself. But yeah, like that 100% rule that Naval talks about, I think is really, really helpful and thoughtful. And obviously, it's a take on this quote by Epictetus, which is, like, don't do it unless you're going to take on 100% of the other person's life. Like, there's no value in comparing yourself to others. And you might say, hey, I'd like to maybe get inspired by others. I can take that all day long. I can support that. What I can't support is where, again, going back to the previous quote, where we start to, compare ourselves to others and actually, despite that, beat ourselves up, because we're not where they're at. Then that's where I say, great. Well, are you willing to take on 100% of their life, their baggage, the bad stuff that's going on in their life, the bullshit that you may not even know about? And I can't give you an example of someone's life. I'd say like, 2 seconds, I trade mine for theirs. I don't have that example. I actually like my life a lot. So great quote by one of my favorites, Epictetus. Let's go to the next one. Don't talk more than you listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth by Zeno. I love this one. And I've been around some people in my day that, man, do they talk and talk and talk. And it really sends a few signals out there. Number one, it sends a signal that you're more important than everybody else, which, like, guess what? There's this thing that I know all of you who are listening are going to 100%, you can agree before I even say it. I will bet any one of you now $1,000 that you're going to agree with what I'm about to say, which is, guess what? It's all about you. You don't care about other people more than yourself. You care about yourself more than other people. This is just how we're wired. This is why we're here. And so when we talk more than we listen, number one, we signal that we're more important than everybody else. Number two, it shows that we're not really one to listen. So when people, reciprocate behavior. So if I'm not listening to you, then you're probably not going to listen to me. And at the end of the day, people want to be seen. They want to be heard. People want to feel important. And if we don't do these things, if we're talking more than we're listening, then we're not really giving off those signals to someone across the table. And they're going to automatically shut down or just like not care as much. And if the goal here is to connect with other humans, to be our best self, to live our highest life, why not do what we can to make that happen? So if you're one of those people out there and you know who you are, that you talk more than you listen, 2 ears, 1 mouth, man, listen more than you talk. And I'll say this, especially in business, when we're trying to do deals or we're trying to sell someone on our vision or to buy our product. If you're talking more than they are in the sale, you're losing the sale every single time. It's about asking questions. It's about making others feel important. It's about learning about what their needs are and then fulfilling those needs. And you can only do that if you're listening more than you're talking. The talking should really be in reaction to the listening, to educate or to reflect or just let people see that you've been heard. I have a really good friend, Doug Irwin, former guest on the show twice now, probably one of the best listeners I know. And when I think about him, I think about how I feel seen by him. I love him. I know he listens to me. He takes it in. He puts his hand on his heart when I'm saying like important things. And I'm like, man, I feel seen by that guy. He really, really listens to me when I talk. So think it to yourself, like who in your life are you doing that with? Who in your life are you showing up for where you're actually seeing them more than they're seeing you or hearing you? And if the answer is not enough people, then it's real simple. What are the things you could change? One of the things you can change, it's really simple, is to listen more than you talk. People love people that want to listen to them. Makes them feel important. So I think Zeno had that nailed down. Great quote by our friend Zeno, one of the major Stoics out there. All right, we're going to go to the next one. The next one, you mess up too, so don't judge other people. Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, like this is important. Like judging people is obviously like, look, we're humans, we have opinions, we're going to judge. And really, it's around like safety and protection. If you really think about it, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're okay. And most people, for some people, maybe they judge because they want to feel superior than others. But it's one of these things where I always say, like, look, we're all imperfect humans. Marcus nailed it right here. You mess up too, so don't judge other people. You don't need to judge. You don't know what would happen to them that day, that month, that quarter, that year. For all you know, they went through some terrible stuff. And maybe you're seeing the worst part of them. Maybe you're seeing them at their worst moment. Maybe something terrible happened to them that morning before you talk to them. So give people some grace, And what I find is a behavior that I've adopted recently that it kind of came through just kind of going through some trials and tribulations is what can you do? What's a word you can say to yourself? What is a thought you can have? For me, I use my transcendental meditation mantra. I'll say to myself if I'm starting to get triggered or I'm starting to get pumped up. Now I will tell you, it's a new skill set that's not very strong yet. So I don't have that muscle memory, but it's what can I do to ground myself so that I can be more empathetic, so I can listen, so I can understand where someone's coming from, so that I'm not in that judgment headspace. Emerald calls it being a persecutor, right? I don't want to persecute others. I want to give them some grace. Like, I don't know what's going on in the world. At the same time, and it doesn't mean I just sit there and take abuse from them, but it is about giving people grace, remaining neutral, making sure you respect your own boundaries, but also not judging people because until you walk a mile in their shoes, you don't really know why they're doing what they're doing, or if there's something there that maybe if you knew, you would maybe behave differently. And sometimes I'll just ask if I feel comfortable, hey, is everything okay with you today? I'll kind of check in, do a temperature check. And especially if it's someone I care about or I have a close relationship with them, I think it's an important way to, instead of going straight to judging them, it's like, hey, give them grace. Like maybe something's going on that I don't know about, and if I can help them, I will. So I love that by Marcus Aurelius. All right, next one. Don't overindulge. Life is about temperance, balance. Temperance, balance. It's about finding the right amount. Musonius Rufus. Love that name. I'm going to name my next life, my first kid's name is going to be Musonius Rufus Mirshahzadeh, assuming I come back as a Mirshahzadeh. So, look, like the way I think about this is think of anything you love, right? Anything. Sex, food, money, well, money is one thing, but food's a good one. Think of any food you love. If you eat too much of it, you're not going to feel good, And what that means is like, look, we want that juxtaposition. We want that balance. The reason why that, bite of sushi tastes so damn good is because you got one of them. If you have too much of it, it becomes normal, or you might even get sick from it, right? And so it's really around really realizing that, hey, life is balanced. There's a yin to a yang, right? There's a feminine to the masculine. And what I find is what I want out of the result of anything I do is I want to feel better. I want to feel good. I want to feel better. I want to go to that next level. I want to enjoy my meal. I don't want to feel sick after my meal. I want to feel rested. I don't want to feel groggy. I want to feel like I had a great workout. I don't want to hurt myself. So it's really kind of learning where those edges are, where you're at the edge of growth, right? Or the edge of that experience, and making sure you give yourself a little bit of room so you don't overindulge. And what I found is, and I'm not perfect at it, but I do, as you get older, you kind of start to learn where the edges are, and you go, hey, I want to go up to that edge tonight. Maybe I'll drink a little more than I used to, but I don't want the hangover. I don't want to deal with the side effect of overindulging. Every now and again, I'm like, screw it. I'm getting after it. But yeah, I found that that's a really nice lesson in life is really to take it back, take 10% less than you need, right? And learn to live in that realm. And I think this is really around having a mindfulness. I think when I start to look at this quote by Masonius Rufus, that overindulgence is really around not having a mindfulness, right? Not having an awareness. And as one of my great mentors, Rand Stagen, says, with awareness comes choice. So ask yourself the question, am I overindulging because I have an addiction? Am I overindulging because I can't control myself? Or am I overindulging because I don't have an awareness of what I'm doing? And you may have noted, you found yourself at times eating something. This happened to me back in the day where I'd eat something, eat a whole plate of something. I look down, I'm like, I don't even remember eating that meal. And what was important about that statement is there was a lack of awareness. I wasn't slowing down. I was just like zombie man going through the moment. Look down, food plate's empty. I'm like, dude, I don't even remember eating that meal, right? Have you ever done that? Think to yourself. And what that comes down to is not living in the present moment, not taking that 10 seconds that's right in front of me and chewing each bite and thinking to myself, this is great food. I should feel blessings to be eating this, to have this food at this moment, right? That's the opposite of what I'm saying. And you don't need to necessarily go there, but it just kind of goes to show you the difference between mindlessly like consuming a meal versus like satiating each bite, masticating on each chew, and realizing that, man, I should be grateful for what I have right now at this moment. So, those are 7 great Stoic quotes, and I love these Stoicism Fridays. But yeah, it's how do we live that better life? It really comes down to a few things, and I'm going to go off the rails a little bit here. One of the things I've been paying attention to a lot lately is around my energy, right? And the energy of the people around me. Is it good energy? Is it bad energy? Are people aligned with me energetically? Am I aligned with them energetically? Is the work or the things I'm doing aligned with, does it give me energy? Do I actually feel better when I'm doing it? Or do I feel not so great? And, there was this guy I interviewed the other day, and Jeff Smart, and his episode's going to be coming out. And he asked 2 questions. He said, there was this great guy that he used that was amazing at firing people from their jobs. And he said he'd always ask them 2 questions. Question number 1 was, are you happy, right? Do you have fun with what you're doing? And number 2, do you see yourself being here in the long run and doing well? And so the reason I bring that up is it comes down to what's your energy with anything that you're doing. And if you're not loving what you're doing, or don't see yourself growing, right? Again, positive energy, then, you're not really setting yourself up to live that good life, right? To live the good life, to enjoy the moments. And the Stoics, what I found with them that I really appreciate is it's around living the best life, not necessarily having the most fun in life, because I don't think that actually means you're going to have the best life. I think it's around how do we have that balance, right? That temperance, not that overindulgence, the sugar high. And I'll tell you a quick story, and then we'll get wrapped up here. When I learned this I was lucky enough to learn this at a young age, right? And sometimes there's the law of, essentially like addition through subtraction, right? So when we started this, we're talking about the 7 things you should never do. That's really the subtraction side of it. You don't do this so that you're not, inserting this negativity in your life. But when I was 20 years old, and I went on a trip around the world on this thing called Semester at Sea, and it was amazing. I was day 88. It was a 100-day journey going around the world. And on day 88, we're crossing the Atlantic Ocean from Morocco to Miami. And they take kind of the slow ride in because we have finals and stuff like that. So I think it's like 10 or 12 days. You're on the 10 or 12 final days. You're like just at sea. You're not going on land. And I remember like it was the best 100 days of my life. You know, the first 88 were amazing. I mean, I went to, 10 countries, circumvented the whole globe, 20 years old, saw the world, met people that I've known now for over 20 years and 25 years, actually, over 25 years. Yeah. Wow. Crazy. Anyway. But I remember I was sitting there and I wanted to go home. And I remember thinking to myself, man, if I can get tired of this, I can get tired of anything. Because on paper, you should never get tired of doing something that's amazing at this. And it taught me one thing, which is like there's definitely too much of a good thing, and that we can get used to anything if we do it long enough. And and I kept that with me now for 26 years now. I've had that memory never went away. But yeah, I want you to think to yourself, like, what are the things I can do to live a better life? And these are just 7 things that the Stoics said that I thought I'd share with you and give you my thoughts on it. And think to yourself, what can I do to live that better life? What can I do to maximize my time on this planet so that I maximize where I end up and I'm fulfilled when I get there? If you're in that job, are you like happy? Are you having fun? And can you see yourself being there in the long run or not? And if the answer is no, then it's a pretty easy answer. It's probably time to start looking elsewhere. With that said, hope you enjoyed this. Share this with your friends if you think they're going to enjoy it. So one thing I always ask is like, hey, let's share the show. And until next time, peace out. We love you.
She's my lover. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one. She's my lover.